Ryan Kennedy here with Atom Power. Today we're going to talk to you about our prefabricated skids. These things here have been one of the hottest items in the industry that we've been engaged with a lot of our customers here recently. And so one of the big things that we have to recognize is in an EVSE installation, if you looked at the project costs, really these days about 10 to 15% of your overall project costs are associated with the EVSE equipment, even though that's why you're installing it. The other balance of that is associated with engineering and the installation and construction. So what we saw is what we have to do is we have to lower that cost for our customers. Lower the cost of construction, lower that 90% down to something much more manageable for the higher ROI and faster deployment. So we've been deploying these skids. These are the Atom Power version of these skids. We have these in 75 kW, 112 kW, and 150 kilowatt chunks. And so basically you can install virtually any installation pattern with one or a combination of those chunks. So if you have, say, a 600 kilowatt system, use 450 kilowatt skids, and you get the idea. So you can virtually scale any system in these modular chunks and lower your cost of construction. And what we're finding is that we're lowering the cost of overall construction down to around 40% for our customers. That's a 4-0, big deal stuff, big numbers. And that's really important, especially in today's age where we got to lower those construction costs. So that is exactly why we're doing this. So let's walk through some of this a little bit here. So we got the Atom panel here, and this particular one is a 48 amp charge rate. So this has a total of 12 port capability output. This is a 75 kW system, and we got a 480 volt primary input. So we got 480 primary, transformation to 240 volt in the secondary, feeding the panel. 240 volts important because what we're doing is we're actually getting the full capability out of those level 2 ports. 240 volt means you're getting 11.5 kilowatt for the 48 amp charging. It means you're getting 19.2 kilowatts for the 80 amp charging. Now, a lot of systems out there are installed at 208 volts. Nothing wrong with it, but you're not going to get the full output. You're not going to get 11.5, you're going to get about 10 kilowatts per 48 amp output. For the 19.2, you're actually going to get something like 16.6 kW on a 208. So this is 240. You get the full output, higher density per port. So everything here is pre-packaged, sent to you, the customer, ready to go. Everything's NEMA 3R. Everything is service entrance rated. So you got your primary over here, your secondary, and your secondary transformer, and your branch panel. Okay, so we built this thing to go outdoors and in harsh environments. And so what you have here is a skid that basically you can fit any kind of forklift into, get it off the truck, get it on the site. And so all the connections here, all this is hot dip galvanized. We've got stainless steel. We've got NEMA 3R transformer. We've got NEMA 3R primary input breaker, not fuses. So if something ever goes wrong, reset the breaker. Got NEMA 3R Atom Power panel. We've got a NEMA 3R LTE box here. So you got one LTE connection per skid. Sometimes per site, but on this one, per skid. Now on the primary side of this skid, here you got your overcurrent protection. So this is a 75 kilowatt system. This is gonna be a 125 amp enclosed circuit breaker. Again, all NEMA 3R, all service entrance rated. So we feeding everything, all the skids are fed with 480 volts here. Now, you also can get a grounding kit with these skids. And so that's what we've done here. So we've got a grounding kit, and basically what that means is you get your wire right here, size for the 75 or 112 kVA or kW. This one's 75. So what you do is you get the kit of ground wire along with 2 ground rods and all the fittings so you can drive the ground rods. You may not need it. Let's just say if you're in a parking garage or something like that, you're going to mount to the or you're going to ground to the building ground. But in cases like this, when you're out in the yard, that ground kit is very handy because you got everything you need. You got the ground rods, got the fittings, everything. You can ground the transformer, and especially if it's going to be a service feed or service entrance, then you can create your service bond inside there. That's already actually pre-wired for you, and all you have to do is drive the ground rods, run the wire out, and you're grounded. In this case, customers actually run this as a feeder, so we're running from right over here, from this junction box, got the primary feed in, right here to the 480 volt side, and of course everything's pre-wired for you. When it hits the job site, it's ready to go. You got your wire already connected from the primary input of the transformer, secondary wiring out to the Atom panel. All you got to do is bring the primary and then you got to bring the secondary branch circuits out to your pedestals or wall boxes or whatever the site configuration is. Very, very robust product. Very robust, meant for outside, meant for harsh environments. We got little things like covers on the ends of the unistrut here, you can see, just to keep kind of scrape hazards out of the way. Lift this up with your forklifts, and you know what, at the end of the day, if you really wanted to, let's say you're leasing the property or something like that, the cool thing about this is your entire EVSE power distribution system. You could unhook it and lift it off and put it on a truck and take it to the next property. All right, so over here, we got two different kind of installation types. We have a concrete and we got ground mount. Now, one of the problems out there is that if we're ground mounting, a lot of times what we do is say, okay, well, we need to put a concrete pad, so that means I got to flatten the ground, I got to get some concrete, I got to get some rebar, I got to pour it, I got to wait for it to set, come back a couple days later, maybe it's hard enough and I'm going to set this thing on there. That's okay if you want to do it, but if you're going out in a yard like this, especially with our fleet customers, we're seeing this, you got yards, right? It's much, much faster, much more cost effective to use ground screws. And so that's how this one is actually connected to the ground. On each of these corners, we've got 4 ground screws that go about 60 inches down into the ground. And that has some tremendous pull and support weight on it. We have specifications on all this. We can send your design engineer if they want to see like what the actual full capacity of the ground screws are. So as I mentioned, this skid is being held up by 4 of these guys. These are 63 inches tall. I'm 6'6". You get the idea how tall these things are. So basically what we do is we get a bobcat, an auger bit, and you drill this thing down into the ground, leave about that much above, because what you do after that, you put this guy on, and this is the support for the skids. This goes right in here. Everything comes with the 3 bolts you need to bolt here, here, and here, and then you bolt the skid right on top of that. And here's kind of what it looks like after you've installed it. You can see down here. So this has an effect of being much, much faster, much more cost effective than pouring concrete, waiting a while, and then come back to the job site. You want to get off that job site fast. Your customer wants you off the job site fast. You want to get the job done fast. This is why we're doing this. I'm Bigger Staff here with WB Moore Company in Charlotte. Ryan, how long have you been with WB Moore?
6 years.
6 years, all right. And did you put this in?
Yes, we did. Me and my team put this in. We made a template for the skid in the warehouse. We attached the feet before we brought it out, and then we laid that template on the ground and marked where our ground screws went. After that, we brought the skid out on a forklift, a Lowell forklift, set it in place with the feet already attached to the power skid, and those feet set right on top inside the ground screws, no problem.
And so these ground screws, we got 4 here for this skid. So how long did this whole thing take you to install, from putting the ground screws in to mounting the skid, getting out here, mounting the skid and everything?
That was approximately 4 hours, half a day's work, just to get the ground screws in, laid out with the template on the ground, marked everything out, get the lull, set it in, approximately 4 hours.
Nice, nice. So when you put this thing in, then you pull in the primary feeder input, wired up, and then you got your branch circuit output. And so how did that go? Pretty smooth for you?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I mean, we didn't have any major problems doing this. It was just a learning process with the ground screw setup. And once we had the right adapter for the skid steer attachment, it really, driving the ground screws was really a breeze. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Ryan, appreciate it. And just one last question. So on your kind of EV charging projects going forward, is this something you'd recommend to your customers?
Yes, absolutely. We were excited to work with Atom Power on this, and we look forward to installing many of these. I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Ryan, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, so talking about ground screws, one of the biggest pain points we also found with customers is how they support their pedestals. So what we're seeing a lot is a lot of customers doing a rebar cage, setting the concrete, making sure the anchors line up, waiting a couple days for it to dry, and then putting this in, and then hoping that your anchors are in the right spot to actually mount the pedestal. So what we've done here is we're actually using the exact same ground screws, 63-inch ground screws that we're using for that skid, to mount each of these pedestals on our installations. And so what this it has a similar advantage in the sense that you can put these in very, very quick, and they offer a substantial amount of support, and you don't have to wait for anything to dry. Get off the job quickly. Save money, save time. Now how you do that is we got this adapter here. So you drive this guy into the ground, keep it above the ground level to right above the screws here. This goes in on top, tighten the bolts down around the side, and basically what you got here is this is templated to fit this pedestal. Now what's cool about this is we got two 2-inch holes here on either side. You can bring 2 conduits, 1.5-inch conduits into each of these. So you basically feed your conduit up through here. It ends up sticking out of the ground, put your pedestal over it, wire up your pedestal. Ideally you use flexible conduit going into these. Much easier, it's going to save you a lot of time. So if you're using PVC, just transition over liquid tight, flexible conduit, come up through here, save you a lot of time, a lot of money. Again, this adds into the construction cost being much lower. We're lowering construction by around 40% is what we're seeing. And this is just another element of that.